Alright, so if I'm understanding you right, you apparently broke reality?
Yeah, I guess.
Cool, how the fuck did that happen?
Actually, now that I think about it, I have no idea.
That kind of makes sense now that I think about it. I mean, honestly, if reality got broken in such a way that it had to be remade entirely, I'd imagine that events from before reality was broken would be gone. Especially stuff that's directly tied to it. Come to think of it, it seems kind of surprising that you retain the knowledge that it happened in the first place.
Maybe so I don't do it again?
Then why don't you remember how it happened? Nah, I think it was accidental and you don't remember because this Chad guy doesn't want you recreating the accident. And it's probably something you're not likely to do if you don't know the same things you knew before.
I guess that makes sense.
Of course it does, I'm lore dumping.
Right, anyway, feels like I got some catching up to do, especially since I apparently don't have any material on me now that I've covered that Buckley video.
Shit, that sucks. How you gonna milk the YouTube algorithm for money now?
Wait, that's it! Milking the YouTube algorithm for money!
Ah, so you're going full J-Station.
What the fuck? Ew. No, I was just gonna cover MatPat.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. Game theory? Film theory? Food theory?
Yes.
What?
It's the perfect clickbait. I cover all of MatPat's channels in a single video.
I'm going out for coffee with Jake. You do the thing. I'm not sticking around for this shit.
You're gonna leave me in your apartment by myself?
Yeah, because you're not a fucking tool. Don't make me regret it.
Yeah, sure, alright. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Game Theory, a channel I've covered twice now. Funnily enough, both the times I've covered Game Theory already, I covered multiple videos at once. Well, actually, to be fair, in the case of the first time, I did give each video its own separate video on my channel, although I released them with the intent of being part 1 and 2 of the same commentary. The second time is actually way more relevant to what I'm doing today though, as not only is it much more recent, but it's also relevant by way of subject matter, as this is the third Genshin Impact theory released on the channel. I actually have less to say about this one than the last two because this one is more science-based and typically those are better than ones based on lore. But well, some of you may remember that these were sponsored episodes that I took some umbrage with the ad reads. Going to be one of the main things that I cover here. I'll only be covering a few things though, so this is going to be a timestamp on the clip kind of section we got going on right here.
Genshin Impact. The game has just released their 4th country update.
Mondstadt and Liyue were released at the same time. This is the third update that adds a country to the game. Technically, you could count beta and alpha in this, but well, I don't feel like that's appropriate. Although I get what you're getting at, it's the update that related to the 4th country, but that's technically incorrect as well, since Inazuma is actually 2 separate countries. Listening to most of the dialogue in relation to Watatsumi still refers to it and Inazuma as being separately governed, including having entirely distinct military and religious officials. And here's the kicker. Watatsumi worships a different god, Orobashi. The Raiden Shogun is both the Archon and the head of state in Inazuma, and Watatsumi straight up does not recognize her authority in either of these 2 capacities. This isn't like with Havria, the salt goddess, either. There are some worshippers of her, sure, but they for the most part still recognize Morax's authority as the Geo Archon and the rulership of the Qi-Ching. They just think Morax is a dick. There's also a strong contingent in Sumeru that recognize King Deshret as their true god as well, but notably, none of Deshret's followers, and none of Havria's followers for that matter, are playable like the leader of the Watatsumi and the general of the Watatsumi army. Oh, and then of course there's when the updates relating to Sumeru came out. See, MatPat's video came out at the beginning of 2023. The first Sumeru update was in August of 2022. 4 months isn't something that just happened, at least not in my books. But to be fair, with wording like this...
In it, you'll be exploring the new region of Sumeru, featuring a plethora of biomes ranging from the lush rainforests around the capital city to a desert full of underground ruins and buried lore.
Maybe the desert areas of Sumeru are what you're talking about. Except that was in September of 2022, so it still didn't just happen. Like, it wasn't even the Archon quest in the current version of the game as of your video, which was Interlude 3, which is why you're talking about how Wanderer just came out during your ad read, because that quest was explicitly about him because we just got him playable, and they needed to explain why he wasn't a bad guy anymore. The singular also indicates that you're talking about one update, but again, it's worth noting that this is misleading. Sumeru wasn't released all at once. Hell, parts of Sumeru wouldn't even be released when your video came out, nor did the entirety of the Archon quest. So, like, is this something that kind of misleads people a little bit, which isn't good when doing this as an advertisement? A lot of people complain about a lack of content because it has tendency to be drip-fed over the course of a year rather than released all at once. And this contributes to that for people who maybe are on the fence about trying the game. So it really strikes me that you would lump multiple versions together into one like this, because when people play the game and find out that it doesn't release all at once, like you're kind of implying that it does, they'll feel misled, even if that clearly was not your intention.
You see, each new party member in Genshin Impact is associated with one of 7 different elements: Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, Electro, Geo, and Animo. But at the start of this new storyline, we're introduced to Nahida, an Archon of a brand new element known as Dendro.
Okay, so not only is Nahida not someone we meet right at the start of the Sumeru section of the game, and not only is she not the first Dendro character we meet, or the second, or the third, but she's not even in the first act of the Archon quest. So even if you're just talking about the first update, you're wrong on that. Look, the rest of that about when the update actually came out, that could be blamed on your cycle for scripting these things. Still bad, but at the very least, there's an explanation for it at the least that makes the mistake make sense, other than the Wanderer thing in your ad read, which I'm gonna use to debunk this entire idea. However, this is just flat out wrong from the jump. Shouldn't be here, just straight up bad writing. Then again, based on what else I'm covering, I really shouldn't be surprised.
Combat in Genshin Impact is based on creating elemental reactions by combining different elements. Most do what you'd expect. Combine Hydro and Cryo and you're getting yourself a freeze reaction. Combine Cryo and Pyro and you get the melt reaction. Makes sense. But with these new Dendro powers, things start to get a little bit more unexpected. Sure, combining Dendro with Pyro causes burning, and combining Dendro with Hydro causes the growth of seeds.
You called everything else by the actual name of the reaction, but not bloom. And I mean, technically seed growth is kind of sort of accurate. I'm gonna show why you know that's not the case later. But since when are dendro cores referred to as seeds? If anything, the graphic at the very least should have the name of the reaction instead of seed growth, even if you're describing it as seed growth with your voice. This is actually kind of minor in the grand scheme of things, but well, it's very infuriating and feels like it was done on purpose because you realize the word bloom would imply that what you're saying isn't that accurate of a descriptor, because it kind of isn't. Like, you do even call it bloom later in the video. Look, from here, he's getting into the main body of what he wants to talk about, and to be honest, it's pretty good. The explanation of why Dendro and Electro reactions make sense is actually very well suited to what MatPat does and is well executed. There's some points where his footage isn't super not fitting. Like, he's talking about quicken reactions and he's not showing quicken reactions, for example, but that's whatever. I think you guys get the idea that there's going to be small things like that by this point. Although I think it's worth noting a couple of things about the actual theory itself. For one, his reason for hyperbloom making sense involves plant matter being used as a projectile, not seeds. That would make sense, and it also matches with what I just said about dendro cores not being fucking seeds. They're buds. I suppose technically it would still be seed growth. You're growing the seeds, but that's beside the point. It's just kind of notable, and I don't really think it's worth making that a whole point to really debunk him on. Second of all, I think it's actually interesting that a Chinese-made game can be proven scientifically accurate from a study conducted in China. I don't think it's suspicious or anything. I just feel that perhaps Hoyoverse had some more first-hand knowledge in comparison to someone like MatPat, which is why they came to such a surprising conclusion that turned out to be backed by science. But, Then we get to the ad read.
Thanks again to Genshin Impact for sponsoring today's video. It's been really fun to put the lore down for once and instead focus on some of the new cool sciencey aspects of the game. So special thanks to them for letting us roll with something a bit out of the ordinary. That said, it doesn't mean that there isn't new lore for us to discover.
That's a Mondstadt talent book. You've been spending this whole time talking about how Sumeru is the new hot region, literally rainforests and deserts, they're both known for being high temperature climates, and you couldn't grab a Sumeru talent tablet instead of the Mondstadt one at the end. And science is in books too, you chucklefuck!
In fact, in their 3.3 update, they just released a brand new 5-star character, the Wanderer. Once our enemy, he's now an ally with a dark and mysterious backstory full of sorrow and betrayal, which sounds a lot like my kind of character.
Remember when I said that your ad read proved that the timing couldn't be the reason for your errors earlier in the video? The fact that you're specifically advertising 3.3, and I know that you had to send this to Hoyoverse for approval before you uploaded it. So, and it's really also on Hoyoverse for not saying, hey, you kind of got this wrong. But realistically, the stuff that you got wrong isn't stuff that they're going to care about, but it's stuff that you should, honestly.
And if you're dying to understand these characters a little bit more, well, you can now take part in their Wishes from Teyvat event, where you'll receive postcards directly from the characters themselves. Apparently, there are plenty of hidden Easter eggs to find inside of them.
That's just a regular egg. Okay, to be fair, Genshin doesn't really have a graphic for a painted egg, but look at this! Look at this image and tell me it's not the most hilariously cringy thing that you've ever seen!
And you know what that means. Lore!
There's no lore that comes from Wishes for Teyvat. It's just a fun character interaction thing. Stop it. I'm calling the Eremites.
I guess I'm just gonna have to keep checking in to see if Yai Miko has written me back.
Simp.
But if you just fancy something different, there's also the brand new game mode, Genius Invocation Trading Card Game. That's right, Genshin now has itself a trading card game. Collect cards, build your decks, and destroy your enemies. And oh yes, my friends, there's lore to be found in there too. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. You'll just have to play it and find it for yourself.
Yeah, the funny thing is that this is way more true as of version 3.7 than it ever was during 3.3. Like, there's technically a storyline in the tutorial? In fact, I'll spoil it for you. Diona teaches you how to play, and there's a cat that's really good at the game. That's the whole thing. Seriously, there's your Sans' Nest funny meme scraping the bottom of the barrel persona that's actually funny, and then there's this desperate attempt to find a thing where there is none when you're advertising the game? You could have just said, it's got a card game and Sino says funny words, and you would have been golden, man.
So if you want to desperately hear back from your chosen waifu, or you're just interested in trying out the new Dendro powers like we talked about today, head on down to the description and click the link below to download the game on the device of your choice for free in order to start your adventure. It is a huge, massive open world game with a robust story, and all of it is for free.
Your waifu cost me $100. What are you doing? Alright, fine, maybe it's not as bad as the other two, but it's still funny to dunk on as someone who knows the game really well, so, you know, whatever. Forgot my phone. Excuse me. Anyway, film theory. There's a lot of videos I could cover from Film Theory's catalog, but there's one that I've actually wanted to cover for quite some time, where MatPat theorizes that Dib from Invader Zim is an alien. And so, since we're already diving into stuff that I happen to be an expert on, I figure we can go there next.
After rewatching the series again, I think there's been a secret hiding in Invader Zim from the very beginning. A secret that turns the show's entire premise on its head. A secret that, unlike most of our theories, I think is actually intentional by the creators of the show.
Like, okay, I know this is just some nebulous comment to begin the theory and bait people to keep watching, but there's actually going to be an attempt to cash in on this creator intent comment, which, well, it's very unfortunately timed.
Today, I'm gonna prove to you that Professor Membrane, Earth's most renowned human person scientist and father of the proto-MatPat known as Dib, is actually an alien, just like Zim himself.
Okay, again, there's nothing actually wrong just yet. You're establishing a thesis, really, but this does bring me to pointing out how your title is. See, you're not really proving that Dib is an alien, are you? You're proving that Professor Membrane is an alien and using the fact that Professor Membrane is an alien to prove that Dib is an alien. But as we're gonna see, this distinction plays quite a bit into why your authorial intent comment gets blown completely out of the water. Like I said, we don't really know that you're lying yet.
You know not to use my tools for your parascience.
As one of the world's leading scientists, Professor Membrane claims to have revolutionized every field of scientific study, and he takes a hard stance against the existence of the paranormal. Membrane constantly tells Dib that his fake science is inferior to Membrane's real science, despite sometimes being presented with overwhelming evidence of the existence of aliens.
There are no aliens. You've been watching those transmissions since you were a baby with an enormous head. It's time to move on, son.
And this is our first clue that Professor Membrane isn't all that he seems. Despite having a clearly scientific mind, he absolutely refuses to acknowledge any evidence of alien life. Beyond the typical things that other Earthlings write off, like Zim's appearance, Membrane is confronted directly with aliens and alien technology multiple times throughout the series, but repeatedly chooses to ignore it.
Achievement fucking unlocked, you found the joke! I know so far this just sounds like MatPat doing MatPat things and trying to find the reason the curtains are blue, but he even points out with his own speech bubble here that Membrane actually tends to have some explanation other than aliens for what's happening, and yeah, that's what a scientist would do. Use reasoning that coincides with scientific understanding rather than throwing things about scientific study out the window. This is how it works in the real world. Hell, for that matter, I remember maybe 10 years ago during the ghost hunting craze seeing something that feels relevant here. I'm not going to cite anything because this is very much anecdotal, but hear me out. There was this reality show where the contestants were basically trying out to be ghost hunters, and in one of the challenges, a contestant gets audio that sounds like it could be a ghost, but then the host, after hearing about what happened, points out that no one would believe them because there was a rational explanation for the sound other than paranormal activity. This is how the human brain has a tendency to function. We are more likely to find an explanation within our understanding than admit that the explanation requires us to change our assumptions unless presented with overwhelming evidence. And as a comment you point out later will show, it's not as overwhelming as you make it sound.
In the episode Bloaty's Pizza Hog, which was FNAF before FNAF existed, Dib and his sister Gaz call Membrane from a working Irken spaceship. No reaction. Later, in the Invader Zim movie Enter the Florpus, he's confronted with a garage of evidence, but again, declares it all fake.
As a man of science, I need proof, and I just haven't seen
Proof? How do you need more proof than this? Everything I've collected from my countless battles with Zim. I wish just once you'd have my back.
Wishing isn't very scientific, son.
The exact scene that you're playing even explains why Professor Membrane doesn't think that the evidence is real. The only piece of actual alien tech that is pointed out to him is Tack's ship, and Membrane explains that it doesn't fly. And in the video call that you bring up from the working ship, he would have no way of knowing that they are in a currently working ship, just that they're in something that looks like an alien ship. He's got nothing on his visual to indicate that they're even moving.
And it only gets worse considering by the end of that movie, Membrane is abducted by Zim, taken to space jail, and surrounded by actual aliens. Rather than considering all the possibilities of such a wild discovery, Membrane instead acts like the whole thing was just a hallucination.
Well, that was very convincing.
Because it's real, Dad!
He even admits confusion over the existence of his alien doppelganger Clembrain.
I'm very confused right now.
Right, because clearly the only logical conclusion to being confused is thinking aliens exist when you've never thought aliens exist. I mean, he's already convinced he's in a hallucination. It makes sense that if he's in a hallucination, the things in that hallucination are going to be confusing. And that confusion that you're talking about here, by the way, comes after having fought off giant waves of robots. Not aliens, robots, they're machinery, they can be created by humans, and is followed by him using a device that he's never used before in order to save the day. Oh, and as for your next fucking example...
But continues to deny the existence of aliens, often going on TV to make such a claim, even at the expense of his own son.
What about that glowing thing? Look at it! That's no human glow!
Possibly a weather balloon or swamp gas.
Yes, often, as in once. And that happened before Enter the Florpus, by the way. Not only was that episode before the episode where Tak's ship gets taken by Dib, but Enter the Florpus still has to take place after the entire rest of the series. Because not only does Zim know that the Tallest have no plans to approach Earth in the first fucking act, but the Tallest are also presumed dead at the end of the movie, which is confirmed by Jonan Vasquez to be canon. In regards to the potential counter-argument to my first piece of proof that this is canonically after the rest of the series, the Tallest not coming, Zim later presumes that the Tallest still want him to complete his mission. Some would call this a way to reset the status quo at the end of the movie for both comedic effect and to open up potential continuation. Okay. And Membrane thinking the whole thing was a dream after he got hit on the head can't be that. Why exactly? In other words, there's no way to work the evidence where this doesn't take place after the rest of the series, unless, of course, you blow everything that you've had to say about Professor Membrane's motivations out of the water entirely. So either you're wrong or you're wrong. Pick one.
It's almost like he's trying to keep the public in the dark about aliens for some reason. Now, one obvious reason for this could be that Membrane himself is an alien. First, let's look at his character design, shall we? He wears a face-covering lab coat with goggles at all times. And I do mean all times. He's been dressed this way since he was a child.
I asked Santa to bring me 12 cases of uranium-238.
It's very similar in look to what we see members of the Urkin race wearing on the mothership. Tall-necked collars to hide the bottom of their faces.
That particular design element could be coincidental, and there's enough of a difference to prove that is likely the case. Professor's collar is much wider than those that the Urkins wear, and, well, we'll get to this in a later part of your theory, but based on what role the control brain would have given him, yeah, he wouldn't use a collar like that anyway.
And the goggles would presumably hide his alien eyes. It's also worth noting that Membrane happens to have the exact same hairstyle as Zim's human disguise, which the wiki refers to as a shark fin haircut.
Yeah, that's just kind of a lie. I looked on the wiki for shark fin haircut. There's no mention of a shark fin haircut. Now, Membrane and Dib are mentioned as having scythe-like hair, and Zim is mentioned as having a bouffant in his disguise, which is very similar to a pompadour. But yeah, no mention of shark fins. Well, correction. Professor Membrane's wiki entry does mention sharks, but we'll get to that later, and spoiler warning, it doesn't involve his hair.
Coincidence? Maybe, but perhaps most tellingly of all is Membrane's lack of ears. The show makes no small deal about Zim's lack of ears identifying him as an alien.
And he's got no ears! Is that part of your skin condition, Zim? No ears?
Now look at Membrane. No ears. Maybe they're covered by the goggle strap, but that would just make it really impossible to hear anything and also be super uncomfortable. No, it is much more likely that his ears are just gone. And here's the kicker. The one thing that goggles can't hide is Membrane's lack of a nose. Nothing is there on his face. And we know for a fact that something is drawn in the other characters. All the other characters on the show have noses except for, you guessed it, Zim, the alien.
You are aware that Zim having no ears is only mentioned by Dib, right? Nobody else in the series, alien or not, finds the lack of ears unusual, which brings up 2 points. For one, it does something that adds credence to your theory that you really should have brought up. So why is it that no one else thinks that Zim's lack of ears is weird? Well, simple. Because one of the most famous figures in the known world also doesn't have ears. Same with the nose. Of course nobody thinks it's weird because Zim's the same way. So this is probably your best evidence in the entire video. And the character design choices can speak to intent. Sure, his ears could also be hidden by the lab coat, but the nose thing is a lot harder to explain. Which brings me to, well, the obvious answer to all this. If these things are unusual human traits that only Professor Membrane, Dib's father, is shown to have other than Zim, why would Dib think this is unusual? Zim shares traits with his father, so who gives a shit? The green skin is a lot more pronounced of evidence, but at that point, Dib's just questioning something that others aren't. And the reason Professor Membrane wouldn't question it is because, well, he knows medical science better than Dib. But the fact that his father supposedly doesn't have ears, and Dib thinks it's strange on Zim? There are three possible reasons for that. One is just, he has ears. Dib's seen his dad's ears, possibly his nose as well. Others haven't. It's just Dib having seen something that other people can't see. The second is that he secretly thinks his father is an alien. You present later evidence that points to this being somewhat of a possibility, but we would have seen stronger proof of that in the show if that were the case, and, well, he wouldn't really be trying to prove to his dad that he's right, now would he? He'd know why his dad won't believe him and not even question it. The third option is that, well, he already knows why his dad doesn't have a visible nose or ears. And we're going into an element of Membrane's character from Enter the Florpist to explain that. Remember the shark thing? In an early scene, it's explained that when Professor Membrane was young, he thought that people could make friends with sharks, but then he dramatically turns away from the camera, exposing a fully robotic arm and saying, "Not anymore." Gag as it might be, it serves as an explanation for the more obvious deformities in Membrane's appearance, the lack of ears and a nose. I mean, it's not likely that the only injuries he got from that incident were to his arm. Possible, but this would also explain why Dib would find Zim's lack of these body parts unusual, but not find them unusual on his dad. He knows about his dad being attacked by a shark he tried to make friends with, so this aspect of his dad's appearance makes sense to him. It's even mentioned in the series that Dib has been interested in the paranormal since he was a toddler, so he definitely would have thought something and had it explained to him. Granted, considering every single appearance of Membrane uses an angle that could logically still hide his ears and nose until after his abduction in the movie, there's other potential explanations ranging from being an alien to being replaced by an alien clone to a side effect of Zim's abduction technique, but the point is that this piece of evidence is flimsy at best.
Even the strange way Membrane chooses to emphasize words feels very much like the speech patterns of our favorite alien, Zim.
It has been 1 day already, and the cure for pigmouth still eludes me.
Ms. Bitters, I have a mighty need to use the restroom once again.
Yes, because the one scene where Membrane gets shouty mid-sentence clearly indicates a match. Like, that happened once. And on top of that, it was on TV. Which leads me to a possible explanation here, and it's in why Zim's strange emphasis is in the scene that it's in. Zim is trying to act human, part of the joke being that the act is so over the top that it would come across as fake to Dib and to the audience. He's emphasizing the degree to which he needs to use the restroom in order to garner sympathy and be given the pass. That's the point of what he's doing, but the poor execution comes from a lack of understanding of human society and human mannerisms. Most likely, he learned this emphasis from television, because, not sure if you noticed, he also doesn't normally talk like that. And Professor Membrane is on TV frequently, and one would think that part of Zim learning human culture and thought process would be to learn how people talk. So, if he's listening to Professor Membrane talk and picking up normal human speech patterns from there, then maybe it's the other way around. Membrane doesn't talk like that because it's Irken. Zim talks like that because he thinks it's human.
Now let's talk about advanced technology. The Earth of Invader Zim seems to be set in the early 2000s based on the gravestones that we see in the series, and yet human society appears to have much more advanced technology than you would expect from that era. Why? Well, it seems to be coming from Membrane Labs.
Membrane Labs. Who wants a better everything?
Throughout the show, we're shown that Professor Membrane is a combination of Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and Nikola Tesla, revolutionizing almost every facet of technology on Earth, and setting trends while he does it.
The whole ignorant world watches as Professor Membrane prepares to make the greatest announcement he's made since last week.
So, is he just smart? Or is he actually an alien? We see that Irken technology far exceeds that of modern Earth. Even an idiot like Zim can create a time travel device with a lab down in his basement, and he shows a clear disdain for Earth technology.
This inferior equipment! Irken babies play with more advanced toys!
And we see that much of Membrane's technology is significantly more advanced than the average Earth tech. Even things like his kitchen appliances are either sentient or potentially deadly.
Be sure to take them out of the can, or the explosion will destroy all human life!
Yeah, bit of a problem with this part of the evidence that you're showing. You play a scene where Zim refers to Dib's tech as Irkin baby playthings. My inner Zim is coming out right now, good lord. Which is a reflection on Membrane's level of technology. Hell, the fact that he puts the advanced tech in his home as well indicates that maybe, just maybe, Zim is saying that Membrane's advancements are also incredibly inferior. Now, of course, Zim could also be bullshitting, as he is wont to do. Keep in mind that at the end of Enter the Florpus, he steals a ceramic doll from Dib's living room and claims that that was his plan all along.
Now, advanced technology alone doesn't necessarily mean that he's an alien. The fact that his technology looks a lot like Irkin technology, though, does. A lot of Membrane's tech has weird vacuum tubes, bulbous shapes, and purple coloring, all of the signatures of alien and specifically Irkin tech.
Yes, because two inventors can never use the same component in what they invent. MatPat, have you ever heard the term great minds think alike? Yes, Animaniacs, great minds think for themselves, but the point is that more often than not, when an idea is good, more than one person is liable to come up with it. This isn't always the case, but it's still a reason why the vacuum tubes filled with liquid may just be an efficient way to execute their purpose. And yes, heaven forbid more than one person build a round structure. The purple-pink color of the room Gaz was tested in could also be a coincidence, especially since most of Membrane's tech, as you show, is blue or green in colorization. Like, there's also the fact that Membrane may have figured out the scientific process behind alien tech that Dib shows him as a proof of alien life, and wound up incorporating those concepts and even designs into his own work. You said it yourself. He sees a lot of proof, but the thing that you miss about that proof is that to him, it's just stuff that Dib made. I mean, Dib has successfully raised the dead. We know he's smart enough to make this shit.
In one night, Membrane is able to add an entire wing onto his lab to research Gaz's pig girl mutation, which is something that we know Irkin technology does. And when it's done, it happens to look a lot like the inside of an Irkin base.
Based on what? A pink force field? This isn't even a case where patterns are similar enough to look like the same thing. It's just also advanced technology.
But it all goes beyond mere aesthetics here. Membrane Labs' tech is canonically Irkin. In one episode, Dib is taken captive by Zim. To escape, Dib needs to hack Zim's computer, and then this happens.
I only hope the Irkins just happen to use the same operating system as me. Yes!
That's right, the Irkins use the same operating system as Membrane OS, his father's computer system. How could the Membrane operating system interface match perfectly with Irkin tech unless Membrane himself knew about Irkin tech in the first place? Heck, how could Dib have found any operating system that could interface with alien technology unless there was already aliens on planet Earth?
Because it's an Independence Day reference, you chuckle fuck. Yeah, something Invader Zim does a lot, which somehow managed to fly over your head, is parodying old Invasion B movies. Think along the lines of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or I'd even argue lifting elements of Troma's work in the 80s for a lot of its choices of tone. But there are also specific jokes in relation to specific, infamously illogical moments in sci-fi history, as a lot of sci-fi parodies have a tendency to do. Like, for instance, the infamous scene from Independence Day where Jeff Goldblum hacks the alien mothership with a Windows computer. Oh, I'm sorry, PowerBook. My bad, it was an Apple computer. Which actually raises another reason that it could make sense that it wouldn't have to be the exact same operating system. Apple and Windows computers are actually more compatible than people realize. You can actually run Windows on an Apple computer, and you can run the Apple OS on a Windows computer. So I guess you could argue that both were made by humans, so it's more likely to be compatible. But again, it's really not that much of a stretch for something to be compatible enough in order for the two pieces of technology to communicate, even without them being the same operating system. But that's beside the point. Now, the act of parodying this in particular could be interpreted as a clue that alien technology was already on Earth in Invader Zim, since the justification that seems to have even been implied in a deleted scene from Independence Day is that the ability for the two systems to communicate was a case of reverse engineering from a computer that had been on Earth for about 40 years of study up to this point. But that is a little bit of a stretch. I mean, That's the big problem with this whole bit, really. Your evidence of Membrane's tech being based on an Irken blueprint is a stretch of the imagination that you're making out to be this big, definitive piece of proof, when you were really coming closer to having sound logic behind your theory when you were talking about his alien denial. And given the time frame this would have needed to happen in, don't you think that perhaps the technology would wind up divergent anyway? So saying it looks the same or different doesn't really indicate anything other than what Jonan Vasquez wanted to draw that day.
That just leaves us with one question. Why would Membrane be here if he was indeed an alien? After all, the Irkens only sent Zim to Earth's location to get rid of him. In the pilot episode, we see a post-it note on their board where Earth happened to be. So they must have had an idea that something was out there, but they never got any hard evidence that it actually existed. It seems to me like they've sent someone to Earth before, and I don't think it was on a mission of invasion, and they never heard a report back. One thing that we haven't fully explored yet is that Irken society runs on height. 2 taller Irkens are in leadership positions, and everyone else is much, much shorter. You'd think that there'd be a bit more variability in the Irken race, but there really isn't. Right now, you just have 2 that are really tall, and everyone else who is just really short. There aren't any in the middle. This seems to imply that the tallest actively cull out other tall Irken to make sure they stay in power. Now,
I mean, if you don't know the lore, then it implies that, but we'll dissect that more fully as we go. But first, there have been tall Irken that were culled out, which is what resulted in Red and Purple having power in the first place. Except it wasn't done by Red and Purple, it was done by Zim. On accident. Yeah, first thing about this entire thing is Red and Purple are the tallest now, or at least until the ending of Enter the Florpus, solely because of the incident on Vort Research Station 9, where Miyuki and Spork, the first and second tallest known in the series, were both eaten by the infinite energy absorbing blob that Zim created. Notably, this was not Operation Impending Doom 2, this was just when Zim was a researcher. This was all supposed to come up in a cut episode of the series, The Trial. Professor Membrane also has 4 fingers, which, well, I'm going to go to your degree of character design analysis for this one. Irkens have 3 fingers. Straight up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tallest actually canonically get their thumbs chopped off when they take leadership, although based on the art from Enter the Florpus, it seems like Red and Purple have just circumvented their way around that rule, but the point is, 3 fingers. Humans in the series are always depicted as having 4 fingers. Dib, Gaz, everybody, including Professor Membrane. Now, there are a couple of counterpoints I know that are going to get brought up in my finger counting expedition. First, it could be part of his disguise, except we have seen a very convincing Irken disguise in the series, one more efficient than anything the Irken Armada is seen to officially use. Tax. But if you look at the disguise, you can see it still has 3 fingers. Now, just think about this for a second. This is a character that has authorial intent of being Irken. So why would Membrane's disguise, which is much older, be that much more effective than what the Irkens aren't even capable of doing themselves? The other possible explanation is that since the arms are artificial, they can have an artificial number of fingers. But not only am I going to debunk that later, let's focus on the ousting of the tallest. See, there's another major difference in physique that you missed about the tallest from the others. Their waist is smaller. Not just smaller in comparison to their height, like smaller in general than the vast majority of Irkens. Of course, the body of the Irken may not be in control of what their physique looks like, which brings me to my next proof that your ousted tallest theory, it just doesn't make sense. So this is where I get into you not knowing the actual lore. You said you went on the wiki, right? You would have been able to find this. The central nervous system, for lack of a better way of putting it, of an Irken is actually the backpack all of them wear, or the pack. That has the personality, memories, and even the job that the Irken has, which happens to include if they are a tallest. Irkens are notoriously hard to kill because of the fact that they can recover from fatal injuries with the help of their pack, possibly just attach it to a new body. And here's where the big problem lies with your theory in this section.
Now, Professor Membrane is quite tall, maybe even taller than the tallest. It's possible that the tallest, in order to retain their rule, sent Membrane out to Earth to get rid of him, just like they did to Zim. Only Membrane was smart enough to know what was going on. So rather than destroy Earth or call back to the mighty tallest, Membrane decided to conquer and rule the planet for himself.
That would not work. See, the tallest have a lot less control than one might think that they do. They still answer to the control brain. While the control brain typically acts mostly as the judiciary branch of Urkin government, for lack of a better way of putting it, if Membrane was taller than Red and Purple, it wouldn't matter how far away he was. He would still be the tallest, and he would be the one the control brain would recognize in the leadership position, which means that Red and Purple would have no authority in the eyes of the control brain. But let's say he did just decide to take over Earth for himself. The only reason it wouldn't make sense for the rightful tallest to return to the Urkin Empire with his conquest would be because he doesn't want the authority, and if that's the case, why bother taking functional control of Earth? Basically, when you do like the 3% of research it takes to know how Urkin society actually does work, then you start to understand how thoroughly debunked everything you're saying is from the jump.
That brings up the cruelest twist of them all. Dib. Dib is funny. Throughout the show, everyone, and I do mean everyone from aliens to demons, comment on his head.
Who's that large-headed kid? I don't know. But his head is large.
Did you conjure a big head demon to give you a big head? Man, that is a really big head.
And not only is his head abnormally large, but it's shaped similarly to Zim's.
Someone that literally no one talks about having a big head, alien or otherwise. Professor Membrane even calls out how big Dib's head is. Hell, the tallest point out the size of his head, so implying it's an Urkin thing is bunk since they don't know what humans are. Like, there's also another potential reason for Dib having an abnormally large head that you're going to bring up, and I'm going to have a field day with that one, trust me.
We also hear talk of Zim's inhuman organs and the fact that Gaz also has those same organs.
Oh, my squeedly spooch! Squeedly spooch? Did you hear that, Gaz? That's no human organ. Humans don't have squeedly spooches.
I've got a squeedly spooch.
Oh sure, this could just be Gaz being sarcastic, or it could be that Gaz knows and is comfortable with her alien origins and her alien body parts.
For fuck's sake! You even acknowledged that she could be fucking with him. God, I've never heard of that before. It's almost like that's a normal thing for Gaz to do. Holy fucking taco on a Thursday afternoon. Jesus Christ!
Maybe this explains why she's Membrane's favorite child. We even have this one-off line from Dib early on in the series that never really goes anywhere and is never fully explained.
I have vague memories of being taken on board of an alien ship as a baby. And I'm not sure, but I think they were doing tests on me. Trying to create some kind of genius super baby, perhaps?
It all fits with this final little detail. You see, theorists, Membrane's children have no canonical mother. She doesn't appear in any pictures. She's not mentioned once by any character in the show, movie, or comics. No one questions her absence. This has led some fans to conclude that Dib and Gaz are clones of Professor Membrane, or at least were artificially created from his genetic material. And that is not just a theory. Eric Trueheart, one of the main writers of Invader Zim, has said that Dib, in a future episode had the show not gotten canceled, would have gone on a quest to find out why his life was so horrible, only to find out that he was a clone of his father. And I think you can see where this is going.
You mean the fact that all the bullshit that I debunked during the rest of this video makes the one piece of hard evidence that you have here mean absolutely nothing? Yeah. Yeah, I can see that it's going there. Eric Trueheart did confirm that Dib and Gaz are canonically clones of Professor Membrane, yes. And he was a writer on Invader Zim. You know a specific piece of Invader Zim media that he wrote? Quarterly Comic 3, otherwise known as the Holiday Special, released on December 30th, 2020. You know, a full month before your video came out. Plenty of time to make sure a piece of evidence doesn't shoot everything about your video in the foot from the guy who gave you the defining piece of evidence that you have in the first place. Hey, whoa, whoops, is that young Professor Membrane not being taller than the tallest in a scene that recreates the full story behind a canonical event referenced in the show with his parents in the background? Well, hot diggity shit, ain't that just the apple in the cornfield? See, normally, I can see one of your videos and just go, you're full of shit, and move on with my life. But I couldn't do that with this one. I tried to, but I couldn't. This has got to be one of the worst research theories I've seen since, well, the one I did on FNAF. It grasps at straws to make a point that at the end of the day hinges on taking a bunch of jokes way too straight. Like, I get that part of the point of these channels when it comes to the story videos especially is going, but what if the curtains are blue? But there's evidence against what you're presenting as the result of that. The strongest of which culminates with this very fucking image. Look, he's not tall. How would the tallest know he was going to be tall except by the very thing that proves they wouldn't have the authority to send him to Earth? How is he surviving without a pack if he is an Urkin? What about the 4 fingers? He has 4 fingers even in this scene, which would be before he would have robotic arms. Look, his dad has Gaz's hair. That's where her hairstyle comes from. Like, so many things that indicate that the only thing about your video that makes any sense is the part that comes from one of the writers directly. I kind of felt insulted when I watched this for the first time. Like, it went beyond just being a bad theory. This is worse than the FNAF theory that I covered, at least for me. This just felt entirely dishonest. It's not even that it's timely either. Into the Florpus came out over a year before the video, and really no consideration for the comics, which have served as a canonical means to continue the series, when so many times you've included print media which has acknowledged itself as separate canon for other franchises. This feels slapdash, feels like a slap in the face, and not even for a reason that works in your favor. Oh, and speaking of being personally insulted, then there's this food theory video I wanted to cover.
I thought you were joking when you said he was going to do food theory.
Yeah, so did I. You want to go watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
No.
Anyway, this video is about Waffle House.
I stand corrected.
Now, not many of you would know this other than the few of you that actually know me in real life, but I actually used to work for Waffle House. In fact, generations of my family have all worked at Waffle House at some point or another in our lives. That's not an exaggeration. I know Waffle House shit like the back of my hand, so when that dumb Waffle House has found its new host meme came around, well, I noticed some problems with MatPat's attempt to figure out who the new host actually was.
Basically, jobs at Waffle House boil down to one of 4 major categories: servers, cooks, managers, and of course, hosts. According to applications, a host's responsibilities include largely what you'd expect: greeting people at the door, finding them a table, distributing menus, and managing the order of anyone waiting to be seated.
Kinda. Hosts don't generally take people's orders. That's the server that would be doing that when they get seated. In addition, a host wouldn't really be a major category per se in the restaurant, but that's something I could let slide. You'd really only have a host position during the weekends or holidays, super high volume times at the restaurant. And I should know, I actually was a host for my first position in Waffle House. See, in reality, those 4 positions form a bit of a hierarchy of who's in charge of who. Managers are in charge of the whole store, cooks have a tendency to be the MOD or manager on duty during the manager's off time, servers are typically not in any position of authority unless they can also cook, and if you're just a host, you're probably on the bottom of the totem pole. Officially, servers and hosts are kind of the same position, but, well, in reality, that is where the perception falls.
Apparently you also have to stock and maintain the self-service coffee bar, which didn't realize that Waffle House has had a self-service coffee bar, but now that I know that, I will still ignore it since I hate coffee.
Then you probably don't go to Waffle House while there's a waiting period to be seated. In other words, a time when there wouldn't be a host. Seriously, most Waffle Houses I've seen, if there's less than 5 servers staffed that day, they probably don't have a host. And if they don't have a host, then they don't have a coffee cart in the lobby. That's just facts.
Anyway, that was basically everything that the job description listed. I checked different locations in different parts of the country, and all of it was pretty darn standardized. But we all know how real jobs go. Oh sure, that's the job description from the man, from the top down, Mr. Big Waffle himself, you know? But I wanted wanted to hear the story from the real people, those down in the trenches, slip-sliding on the Waffle House's unusually greasy floors. I needed to hear it from the few, the proud, the actual Waffle House hosts, the people who had walked so that we could fly.
Although I do appreciate that you actually took the time out to do further research than just looking at the corporate job description, I'm going to point out what you looked up here actually doesn't give a better indication at all. Or at the very least, it doesn't entirely give a better indication.
I wanted the real story from the real host, so I hopped onto various job review boards only to learn that my suspicions were largely correct.
See, there's already an issue I can see on your screen. What you're looking at for the description of the host job, look at the actual job title for that review that you're about to show. Waitress/hostess. In other words, these are people who are hired primarily as wait staff because you generally would not hire a full-time person for just the host position. I got that because of nepotism. So it would come to no surprise when
the reality of the role is different from what's listed on the website. According to online reviews of Waffle House's hosting gig, you're actually cross-trained to do everything. Not just seating customers and distributing menus, you're also cleaning the tables, taking and calling orders over to the kitchen, talking to people and cheering them up if they're having a bad day. The only thing they don't really ask you to do is cook.
What you get in the review is a description of the wait staff job and not the host job at all. None of what you're describing would be considered cross-training for wait staff. You're also required to learn the magic marker system, which is a method by which cooks are able to remember which orders are which, so you can double check what the cook is marking so that it matches the order that you're calling out. No joke, the fact that you have to do so many different things as a server is part of the reason that, for one, I'm no longer doing it, and for two, most people I talk to have no interest in working for Waffle House, including people that actually did used to work there.
No reviews I saw of the host role ever mentioned having to man the grill in times of crisis. What they did mention, though, were the long hours. Waffle Houses are open 24/7, 365, so working weird off hours and holidays comes with the territory.
Based on the fact that you're highlighting how long the hours are, most of the people you got reviews from must have been working third shift. See, Waffle House divides its workforce into 3 distinct shifts. First, which is the morning and a little bit into the afternoon. Second, which is the afternoon and evening. And third, which is basically the graveyard shift where all the drunks come in and throw money and or fists and or various forms of weaponry at you. Now, I can't speak for every Waffle House, of course, but outside of during Christmas where you'll get a 12-hour shift because everyone is working a 12-hour shift. It's that packed the entire time. First and second shift are always 7 hours, and third shift is always 10 hours. Of course, the expectation is also that you stay over to make sure everything you need to get done for the next shift is done, unless you're like me and pull a $1,600 third by yourself and only have a couple of cheese egg pans that you didn't get to yet in the sink, and then when first shift shows up and looks at the sales, they look at you like you're super fucking human. Is this part of the video an excuse for me to tell stories about my own experience and brag about my massive waffle cock? Partially.
That commitment to round-the-clock cheap eats has itself one major unintended consequence: fights. Being one of the only places open after the bars close lends itself to some particularly unpredictable and aggressive clientele, meaning that the ideal host is someone comfortable either de-escalating heated situations or holding their own in a breakfast room brawl.
Well, actually, no, the host is very unlikely to be involved in those fights. So remember when I was talking about those 3 shifts? I hope so, it was one interjection ago. Notice how I already described third shift as the one where you get those people coming out of the closing bars. Oh, and crackheads, but that's not entirely relevant to this. Point is, those people aren't typically showing up when first shift starts around 6 or 7 in the morning. They're come filing in around 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 if you're at a location by a hotel, because you get the people from the after party, you know how it is. Anyway, point is, by the time first shift is in, your customers are generally going to be the people who are getting breakfast before they head to work, and that's also when your business is going to pick up on Saturday and Sunday morning, church crowd, people up early for football, stuff like that. Other than Christmas, because everything weird with the schedule happens on Christmas, I have never seen a host on second or third shift. An expediter or a service facilitator, yes, but never a host outside of Christmas. Hell, I haven't even seen a host on third shift during Christmas, which really just solidifies the point that I'm making the most of these fights would not be happening
when a host is actually in the restaurant.
That's not me making stuff up here either. The reviews of hosting duties actively called this out multiple times. Here's an example. Quote, if you're a host, don't do it, crackheads.
Crackheads don't mean fights. For one, that's in Orlando. Of course there's more crackheads. And for two, crackheads don't get into brawls. They just shank people. Duh.
Managers on Reddit have called out that they've seen plenty of fights over the years. Even Kid Rock and his posse infamously threw some fisticuffs at a Waffle House back in 2007. Waffle House has seen more blows land than your typical YouTuber boxing match. And the reputation for fighting in the restaurant is infamous.
Roy, I didn't come here for the fights. I came for the waffles. You came for the waffle? Nobody goes to Waffle House for just the waffles. Violence is part of the experience. The authentic Waffle House experience is watching strangers punch each other in the face. You record it, you go viral.
Notice how even your parody clip shows this happening at night. That's because it typically doesn't happen during the day. I mean, I'm gonna skip over the rest of this Waffle House has fighting stuff because, I mean, well, it's true. Not gonna debunk that it's true, it just is.
So, our ideal Waffle House host needs to be able to defend themselves as well as throw a solid counterpunch if push comes to shove. But they can't defend themselves too well. You see, if you fight back too hard, you're gonna be allegedly blacklisted from the company. Case in point, at the top of the year, a video went viral that depicted a 2021 confrontation between the Waffle House staff and a group of intoxicated customers. I've heard of food fights before, but this is ridiculous. As you might imagine, the internet lost their collective mind over this anime-worthy defensive maneuver, prompting the employee, Hallie Booth, to make the news circuit as celebrity for the day.
How did you remain so calm?
It kind of just all happened so fast. It was mainly just a pure rush of adrenaline and instinct that just kind of had me going.
That said, if you watch the full video, Hallie might have fought back a bit too aggressively, at least in Waffle House's eyes, despite applauding her publicly for her reaction in the moment when she tried to get a job at another Waffle House location. She was stonewalled.
And I can explain why. It had nothing to do with her deflecting the chair. It was that it went viral, and, well, honestly, I'm not so sure her being willing to throw hands when someone came across the counter would have gotten her fired, because that's the rule in Waffle House. If they cross that counter, then gloves are off. But it's more so that her throwing the sugar shaker, at least I think it was a sugar shaker, could have been a salt shaker, was what got her fired. And that's something that would be easy to overlook in a report of the situation that the clip straight up shows her doing. I don't agree with it, and chances are if you give it like a year or two, they'll probably rehire her if she wants to come back. But yeah, it had more to do with her initial offensive maneuver, which still fits with what you're going to say next. But something else I want to point out, you know what position wasn't inside the Waffle House that night? A fucking host!
Also, here's a little diet theory from me. I suspect that this story is the actual true origin of the Waffle House new host meme. I know the phrase itself is meant to be utterly meaningless because it was suggested to Johnny Razor via the chat, but clearly at least one member of that chat created the phrase about a Waffle House employee out of their consciousness from somewhere. Considering the Waffle House chair deflection was one of the biggest stories on Twitter at the top of the year, I think, either intentionally or not, the meme that's circulating now was somehow birthed from this viral moment. But hey, that's just a theory, a mini theory, let's move on.
Actually, no, I want to give you credit here. This makes a lot of sense. Right when Wendy was at the height of her popularity, this pops up from someone else wanting a random meme. Fair dues. It's not like this video is completely bad, which is why I only have a couple more points left of this video. Spoiler.
Anyway, if you manage to survive your 5 fights at the Waffle House, you're rewarded with more than just a paycheck. Free food is the major perk that almost every employee cites in their review. As one reviewer put it, you will gain pounds.
Well, the food isn't really free. Look, it even says it right there on your quoted review. They take money out of your check for food. No joke, this particular review is probably the most accurate summation, though, of the experience working for Waffle House that I've ever heard. Stuff takes forever to get fixed. Management stops caring because they're in management now, although I've known some very notable exceptions to that. And definitely fits that worst reviews are in Florida because, seriously, you combine the insanity of Florida with the insanity of Waffle House, and I'm surprised that World War III doesn't start instantaneously.
So, in summary, our ideal Waffle House host doesn't need a lot of professional training, but does need to be friendly, willing to talk to anyone, empathetic to those in need and not carrying around a whole lot of ego. They need to appreciate good, hearty comfort food, but they don't necessarily need to be the best chef. They need to be comfortable working any hour of the day, round the clock, even late night shifts. They need to be a generally chill person, but also a fighter when necessary. That said, they can't be too aggressive, otherwise they might risk getting blackballed from the position. And while it's certainly not a hiring requirement, they're ideally the type of person to take advantage of free food. They're not going to be turning down a big old stack of waffles and greasy hash browns.
Honestly, there's two things that bother me the most about this video. Number one, the hash browns aren't that greasy. You say they use an entire stick of butter. No, it's like 1 ounce of butter. Are you fucking serious? And two, this is probably one of the most accurate metrics for success in Waffle House that I've ever heard. So anyway, it turns out Shaggy from Scooby-Doo is the new host at Waffle House.
I hate that makes sense.
Yeah, so do I. Oh, good. That's the food theory one done, yeah? I thought that Indiana Jones movie was like 2 hours long. And I know it's been a while, but it certainly hasn't been 2 hours.
Well, yeah, but it's also Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
True. Right, so, cool. So, you're done, yeah? Oh, no, I've got one more channel to cover.
I thought you already did film theory?
I did. So, style theory. We could probably get our seats back if we hurry.
Why do you wash your clothes? If you said to clean them, oh boy, have I got some bad news for you.
Hold up, what? Yeah, I get it. Look, I know this is stupid. I don't blame you for wanting to get back to your movie. Fuck that, at least this is an interesting train wreck.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Style Theory, the only show telling you how viral fashion can turn into viral fashion.
Okay, so this is convoluted as fuck of an opening. See, what he's referring to is a style theory about a spray-on dress during Paris Fashion Week, which, well, for one, that video is saying that an experimental technology that came out within the past couple of years has flaws, which, duh. To be honest, the main reason I'm not covering that video is because of how obvious it is. There's several of those, actually, on Style Theory, just kind of pointing out the obvious, including some of this one. But here's something else about this particular introduction that bothers me more. That video was in no way about any sort of health risks associated with Fabricant. See, while you have one video that's ostensibly about germs here, and a different video about a piece of viral marketing that you show on screen, and even put in the end card so I know you're trying to cross-promote with this, the only real link is that both videos involve clothes, but you make it sound like the video on Fabricant is also about it being dangerous from a bacterial perspective. Now, see, I get clickbait, you know, kind of burying the lead in a video, number 6 may shock you kind of stuff. The issue I take when someone does stuff like this, though, is when you're actively dishonest with your audience about what you're going to present. And I feel that what you've done here actually skews more in that direction than I feel comfortable with. I guess technically, this statement isn't saying that this video is about Fabricant or that the Fabricant video is about hygiene, but well, it certainly implies that one of those two things is true when neither one of them comes even close to being accurate.
Kind of like how this was supposed to be an interesting train wreck?
I don't know, catching one of the biggest names on the platform basically giving false advertising is pretty interesting to me.
Does it ever annoy you how laundry is one of those chores that you never quite check off the list?
Dude, all those things are things that you never check off the list. I'm sorry, but if you're not doing each of those at least as often as you wash your clothes, with the exception of maybe mowing the lawn during the winter because grass grows less quickly during the winter months, then you're doing something wrong. You catch that, Jake?
Not this shit again.
Wouldn't have to keep doing this if you just do some of this instead of making me do all the work.
Oh, come on. We don't even have a lawn. We live in an apartment.
Should I, like, go?
Nah, it's fine. Continue the commentary or whatever. I'm gonna go do dishes, I guess.
Thank you, babe.
Unless you're doing the laundry completely naked, there's always gonna be some set of dirty clothes just waiting around to be washed. But hey, if it feels like you're always buried under last week's, or let's be honest, last month's laundry, you're not alone.
Gross. Let me expand on that point about how often you should be doing this stuff. It's the same concept as with the other regular chores, especially since the clothes you're wearing aren't really the clothes that you need to wash yet because you're currently wearing them. This is why you do laundry once a week. It's enough time to have plenty of laundry to do, but doesn't stack so much that you're buried in it.
Yeah, you wash dishes way more often. You probably want to do that once a day, maybe every other day if it's just 1 or 2 people you're doing dishes for. Unless, of course, your boyfriend rides your ass about it too much.
He might not if you actually scraped him off and let him soak.
Yeah.
But even though we hate it, you can't really question why we have to do it. We gotta get those things clean. Those pit stains aren't really complimentary to your aesthetic. That after gym stank won't be getting any less ripe on its own. And as much as last night's spaghetti was great, I don't want to be reminded of that meal every time I suit up. In short, we just gotta get rid of the germs, sweat, dead skin cells, and other gunky stains that are ruining our fit.
Okay, so I want everyone to keep in mind the things he's saying that we need to get rid of. Germs, sweat, dead skin cells, and stains. It's going to be important when he gets to the actual meat of what he's trying to say here.
So overall, laundry, while certainly a tedious slog, is at least helping to keep our clothes cleaner, healthier, and brighter longer, is what I'd be saying to you if I was lying to your face. You see, our current way of doing laundry sucks. Not only are modern washers not getting your clothes cleaner, they may actually be leaving your clothes in a worse condition than when you dumped them in the first place. We were better at doing our laundry in the dark ages than we are today.
Okay, so now we have kind of the thesis statement of the video. Old methods of doing laundry are better than the methods we use now. I have to pause here to point this out because, well, I want you to really examine the argument from this lens as we go through this, as well as him implying that washing your clothes leaves them dirtier, which is, well, you'll see how much of a dirty trick that really is.
Let's start by discussing what happens right after you've crammed the wash full of dirty underwear. You see, before our clothes can even see the super sudsing action they so desperately need, we have to choose how to wash them. While every model of washer is different, you'll usually see things like normal, delicate, heavy duty, pretty easy to understand. But then there's also more obscure terms like perm press, rinse and spin, which aren't all the cycles rinsing and spinning the clothes.
I mean, yeah, but most cycles do more than that. The point of rinse and spin is that it runs without detergent. That's the difference between rinsing something and washing it. We are going to mention that perm press cycle a little bit later too, because it, among various other forms of information that are in this video, do a lot to kind of shoot a lot of what you have to say here in the foot.
We really spend an hour talking about laundry?
More time than you usually spend on it.
Great, fantastic. So much for just chilling out when we have company.
And for me, the endlessly confusing option of hand wash, which is like, hey, you're a machine, you have no hands. How dare you lie to me?
That's literally a description on a label that describes laundry that's particularly delicate to damage.
I thought that was what delicates were for.
Kinda. Basically, the difference is that hand wash spins faster and uses colder water.
Oh.
Look, none of this matters. He's literally just gonna say that you check the fucking label for what matches up anyway. So can we just push past MatPat's lame-ass attempt at a joke that registers so poorly that you feel the need to debunk it as an actual point? No. We're doing it anyway.
So you pick the setting that best matches what the tag on your clothing says, you load in the soap, and from there your laundry machine gets to work, agitating those clothes, water, and soap together. Agitation is specifically an irregular, erratic movement rather than something rhythmic.
Which is something a rinse and spin wouldn't be doing. Yeah, all your jokes just kind of fall apart when you explain the difference between rinse and spin and regular cycle of clothing seconds later while trying to act like you didn't try to dad joke your way to a 15-minute runtime.
Guys, shut up, I'm learning shit.
We have found the target audience for this video.
This forces your clothes to rub against themselves and all their other friends in the wash to scrub out the stains. With front-loading washers, you are literally knocking the stains out of your clothes by smacking them along the bottom of the drum as they tumble around.
This is a case where, well, you're not entirely wrong, but you also are. Going back to what was played in the previous interjection, that's not what agitation means. There's no part of any definition of agitate that I can find that inherently involves arrhythmia. And in fact, agitation in relation to a liquid simply describes it as stirring briskly. And I've made enough fucking waffle batter to tell you that brisk does not mean that there's no pattern. And it's especially important that the general definition of the word doesn't contain any mentions of a lack of rhythm or pattern, because the noun agitator has a specific meaning when it comes to washing machines, and it's not something that a front-loading washer has, namely that big pole in the middle of the sink in a lot of top-loading washing machines. That's actually what you're rubbing against to clean the clothes you're washing in those models. What you're describing are washing machines with impellers, and while you could argue that non-agitator options for washing machines feed into his point later, it's worth noting that
this isn't all, or even necessarily most, modern washing machines, at the very least in the US.
This physical beating, though, can only do so much, which is why we also mix in detergents. Detergents make use of surfactants, which we talked about extensively in our Should You Wash Your Legs episode. Basically, these little molecules have a polar and a non-polar end, or another way of saying that is that they have a watery end and an oily end. And the watery end sticks to other water, and the oily end sticks to other oil. In the case of your clothes, oil has built up as sweat in the fibers, as dirt in the stains, or in other places like dead skin cells. So when the oily end of the detergent washes over them, the detergent sticks to the oil on your clothing and lifts it out of the fibers. The watery end then gets picked up by the water swirling around, and all that dirt and grime are carried away down the drain. That's not all. Many detergents and laundry sprays are also loaded with enzymes to help break down the stains that have a more complex chemical structure and are thus harder to remove from the fabric.
Alright, so that's 3/4 of the crux of your argument completely gone. Other than germs, everything else is being done by soap, as the chemical process you described shows. So that just leaves germs, which we'll get to in a moment.
I think I already see the problem with this.
You do?
Yeah, but it's all good. Let him cook.
So with all these fancy surfactants and enzymes showing off their stain-fighting power, the only thing we have left to ask is, how are they doing? The answer is, not as well as you'd hope. Let's start by looking at the first thing that you'd be hoping to get out of the whole laundry process. You know, clean clothes. Well, detergents can do a lot to make your clothes look clean by removing the appearance of dirt and stains. You know the one thing they're not built to do? Actually cleaning your clothes. As in, removing all the bacteria, germs, and viruses that you can't see on them.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Cleaning doesn't kill bacteria. That's what sanitizing's for.
Wait, how did you...
Dale, mi amor, love of my life. We worked at the same restaurant. I had to get a food handler's card too. Just because you did the dishes doesn't mean I didn't know how. And it's the same concept with clothes. You have 3 basic steps. Wash to get rid of the visible dirt, which you admit that laundry detergent does just fine. Rinse to get the soap off of them, which is what the rinse cycle is for, dummy. Anybody with half a brain could tell you that one. And then sanitize, which is what you do to get rid of the germs.
To be fair, it's possible that you can do 2 or more of these steps at the same time with clothes, but that's pretty much the biggest problem. No joke, you're about to point out how Tide's website talks about this exact difference, which I'm going to skip over, by the way, and don't seem to be aware of the fact that it's not what a detergent does in the first place. Like, you don't even need to know things about laundry or food service to understand this, especially after the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
You still listen to Backstreet Boys?
It's a euphemism, not important. Look, you know how you wash your hands with soap and then you use hand sanitizer? Why would you be using your hand sanitizer if your hands were already sanitized by washing them? Because washing doesn't involve killing germs, you chuckle fuck! Oh, it's COVID.
It's not a theory, that is a fact. Oh, sure, they're removing surface stains, bad odors, oily dirt.
You literally said that washing clothes outright doesn't do this at the beginning of the video. Like, again, I'm sure someone can, and let's be honest, will come along and try to say that he's talking about the fact that washing clothes doesn't kill germs specifically, and is pointing out those other things to just pad the video out and make it more dramatic. But in reality, he kind of negates his whole point when you listen to the actual words that he's saying. Like, for instance, this comment.
But all that invisible stuff in there, the stuff that really gets you sick, nothing. Tide Pod used Deep Clean, it had no effect. Most of the detergents that you're using to clean your clothes aren't actually doing the thing that you want them to do, clean your clothes, so they're not covered in bacteria, germs, and viruses. And to be fair, they're not really designed to. It's just that no one ever really makes it a point to make that knowledge clear.
This would be a good point if your source for talking about how they don't do this wasn't the website of the company that makes the item you're talking about. Hell, the definition of the word clean doesn't even say anything about germs or bacteria. It talks about dirt, marks, or stains, and in reality, the entire reason we think of cleaning clothes as sanitization is because, well, people conflated them on their own, and there's reasons that we're going to talk about later that they did conflate these things, but it's pretty common knowledge that soap isn't sanitizer, so that's why it's not, you know, called sanitizer or regulated in the same way that sanitizers are. And no laundry detergent that isn't a sanitizer advertises its germ-fighting capabilities, because, I mean, let's be real, you know that they would if it
actually did kill germs.
Making matters worse, though, is the water. Between the need to keep our colors bright while also moving the world towards a cleaner, more energy-efficient future, most washing machines in the US, Europe, and East Asia tend to run clothing cycles using cold settings. In fact, Tide back in 2021 had this whole big campaign about how they wanted people to do 3 out of 4 loads of laundry a week explicitly on cold settings.
Well, I'm gonna explain the reason for that right now, actually. It's to make laundry wrinkle less so that you don't have to iron as much. And while true, this is worse for sanitation, their other major reason for wanting to push people towards this has to do with environmental conscientiousness, using less energy by both using less to heat the water and less by reducing the use of an iron. But notice how they don't recommend every load be done with cold water. There's a reason for this, and it's going to be something that you bring up later, actually.
There's also been an increase in settings like eco-warm, with water sitting just above 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius, the temperature of a warm, pleasant bathtub.
Which is only useful for clothes that aren't very dirty. Like, that's just it. When you're describing a washing machine setting, you seem to be making the assumption that all loads of laundry are done on that setting. Or, at the very least, it sounds like you're making that assumption, and you know what they say about perception being reality.
While these temperatures can certainly help remove many stains, they're doing nothing to, again, actually clean the clothes. To kill germs, clothes have to be washed at a temperature minimum of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or 60 degrees Celsius, which is something that only 5% of American loads are doing. That's right, 95% of the laundry that's done in America is coming out with germs still on it. Not just because the detergent is lacking, but also because the water temperatures we're using are too low to kill off any bacteria living inside. And we, the innocent consumer, are left walking around in our own filthy, filthy ignorance.
Is it really this common for people to use data that's completely unsourced like this?
More common than you'd hope, think, or ever possibly feel comfortable with. Although, to be fair, MatPat's not actually doing that. We'll see the source of his data later. Fun fact, it doesn't actually explain that 5% figure for this particular statistic he's citing. But we're also going to point out later in the video why even if this statistic is real, it doesn't actually mean anything.
So consider this. You throw your dirty underwear in with your regular load of laundry. Totally fine, it's a normal thing to do. Except
that you're supposed to separate your laundry before you wash it for a fucking reason? Jake?
Huh? What?
Yeah, there's a reason part of the process of doing laundry is separating your clothes based on the way they should be washed. Undergarments will typically be put into your higher temperature cycle, which is why when you separate your laundry, you'd put those together.
You're basically saying that your laundry is less hygienic if you make it less hygienic. I mean, granted, some people still need to learn this shit. For the love of God, Jake, put your underwear in the other fucking basket. But to call the entire process a scam because people aren't following the directions they are given for the equipment is asinine.
Oh, that's what the third hamper's for.
Yes, Jake, that's what the third hamper's for.
according to studies done by the University of Arizona, one germy item in the washer can spread to 90% of the other items in there. In another study, this one done back in 2015, they found that not only was bacteria passed around between articles of clothing during the wash, bacteria was also present in the washer itself because, you know, it's a dark, wet space that never really truly gets dry. The perfect place for bacteria to thrive.
Thank fuck, an actual citation!
Only one citation, though. That's the same screenshot twice, so there's no another study here. And hey, we finally have a citation for that 5% figure. Again, it doesn't really matter, but we'll get there. And we'll actually talk about this study more as we go further into the video because, yeah, this study actually proves answers for counteracting this and also contradicts several points that you make later. Oh, and unlike you, I'll be linking this source in the description instead of making people look up the DOI like a savage.
The ironic part of all of this is that we were better at laundry 200 years ago than we are today with all our modern scientific advances. Back then, many cities across Europe developed communal wash houses called lavoirs, large stone or wooden tubs that held water, where women would go and gather to do their laundry together. At that time, it wasn't uncommon for large copper pots of water to be boiling nearby, as people began discovering the effectiveness of hot water in softening the grip of stains on fabric fibers, thereby making its removal that much easier. And because that water was boiling, it meant that temperatures were around 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, well over what it takes to sanitize clothing in a way that modern laundry practices don't even come close to. And for a long time, using boiling water was just the commonplace practice, like we see here with this old illustration from the Civil War.
So I'd like to point out something you said in the first couple of minutes of this video.
And hey, look on the bright side, at least we don't have to go down to the creek with a washboard and some lye.
Yeah, for one, there's a reason we don't use lye anymore. It's super dangerous. For two, well, what you described there isn't using boiling water in a communal basin. It's going to the creek and still using cool water, even worse because that water isn't being put through any kind of filtration whatsoever and just coming straight from a river. And if you think you're getting pathogens from tap water that isn't boiling, then why don't you put river water under a microscope and tell me what you see?
That's also not historically accurate at all. They didn't wash clothes in lavoirs, they only rinsed and dried clothes there. There's a reason his footage doesn't show those pots actually at the lavoir, it just plain wasn't there.
How did you...
Look, I may have taken a French history class or two, it's not important.
I mean, that's actually a pretty important distinction, though. They have to travel with the clothes further after washing, which means the sanitizing you did with the boiling water may as well have never even happened, since you're dipping the clothes in river water, and you can bet that during the time period, they didn't think that they needed to boil the water in order to prevent infectious materials, because, as you pointed out, that wasn't the reason they were using boiling water in the first place. There's a reason that was the time period when the plague spread.
And while you might initially think that the dryer then is the place where our clothes are getting hot enough to kill germs, think again. On average, most modern dryers are working at around 125 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, or 51 to 57 Celsius. And with energy efficient low heat settings now being the default for many dryers, many cycles aren't even getting that high. This is something that, again, creates a problem when you consider that you want temperatures to be around 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 65.5 degrees Celsius to be sure that you're killing off any of those invisible microbes living in your knickers.
Actually, the temperature you want is 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius if you're using heat to disinfect. But 125 to 135 degrees is also still gonna kill a large number of pathogens, even if it doesn't kill all. And in fact, your own source doesn't really distinguish between high temperature and low temperature drying as an efficient method of reducing bacterial load, but rather to not do so slowly, something I'm sure to mention later. But I'm not even going to address what most cycles do, because the solution to that is simple. Use a different cycle. Seriously, one change based on the kind of laundry you're doing will probably resolve everything. But let's look beyond that for a moment to your comment about most modern dryers having a max of 135. I looked into the information for dryers from the brands at the top of Best Buy's list of dryers. Samsung's high heat setting goes to 140 to 145 degrees, so within the actual threshold that you should be talking about. LG's dryers actually have an antibacterial option that raises the temperature used, and Whirlpool dryers vary by model but can go as high as 160 degrees, with only GE being standardized as the 135 as you claim. 1 out of 4 of the most popular brands in the United States isn't most modern dryers, MatPat. It's 25% at best.
Okay, so our clothes might not be getting as clean as we think they are, but at least they look nice, right? Well, yes, but again, even this is a big lie.
But wasn't that the point of you saying that they still had bacteria in the first place? This is probably just poor wording. I'm not really going to spoil what he's actually going to talk about, but when he words it like this, it really sounds like he's saying that dirt and stains aren't actually getting removed either. But that's not what he's saying. That's very obviously not what he's saying. So I don't know why you would word it like this other than to sort of clickbait and deceive your audience like you've been doing the entire video.
See, there's a lot more to your laundry detergent than just soap. This stuff actually contains a magic trick, an optical illusion. Have you ever noticed how most laundry detergents tend to be blue? It's a marketing gimmick, right? We associate blue with clean stuff. That's why it feels like it has to be cleaner than regular soap because it's so saturated. And like blue toothpaste or blue toilet bowl cleaners, it has to be clean. Well, it's true, but that's just part of our story. You see, housed within that almost fluorescent blue laundry goo is some pretty tricky science. Science that's meant to make your clothes look like they're getting cleaner than they actually are. You see, detergents like our bright blue Tide here contain optical brighteners, also known as fluorescent whitening agents, which are added chemicals that work to make your clothes appear brighter and whiter than they really are.
You're gonna point this out in a minute or two, but yeah, this has nothing to do with cleanliness. this actually has more to do with the fact that clothes fade in color over time, much like, you know, anything. Most fabrics change color over the course of time, and like I said, this is meant to combat it, but doesn't take away from the cleaning process whatsoever.
An optical brightener is any chemical that works by absorbing UV light and then emitting back visible blue light. This process tricks your eyes into thinking that your clothes are whiter and brighter than they are by giving them a bright, sometimes slightly bluish tint. And because of that, this is a practice called laundry bluing. Don't believe me? Well, the easiest way to find out if your detergent has optical brighteners in it is by taking a cap full of the stuff and then exposing it to any UV light, like a black light or one of those handheld UV lights for disinfecting your phone.
Holy fuck, I can't believe I'm saying what he just said is gonna be relevant later. Yeah. Fuck.
Put it under the light, and I bet that your laundry detergent's gonna glow like it's going to a rave in Area 51. If it does, you'll know that your eyes are being fooled every time you wash your shirts and sheets.
See, honestly, this is really interesting to bring up and shows what laundry detergents do to work against clothes fading. I wouldn't really call this an optical illusion or a magic trick, though. I guess technically it is, but you know what's a magic trick? You know what's really a magic trick? Magically adding on to the definition of a word so that a product no longer does what it's advertised to do because you added something it never claimed to be able to do to the description of what's advertised. That is a magic trick.
So are optical brighteners bad? Well, it depends. The truth is that laundry bluing isn't a new fancy practice designed to trick modern consumers into thinking they have clean clothes. This is actually something that's been done for well over 100 years. Back then, they were just basically blue dyes you could soak your laundry in. It was still the same premise though, that you could use blue pigments to offset the yellowy colors that made clothes look and feel dingy after excessive washing. Laundry blues used to be sold in what looked to be soda or medicine bottles, and if you dumped a little too much into the bucket with the laundry, your nice white bloomers would suddenly come out looking like a Smurf massacre.
Oh, so your whole thing about us doing things worse now than we used to doesn't apply here then. Okay, first of all, not only would they not have been doing this in the Middle Ages because blue dyes were very expensive and really only rich people would be doing it, which is why, you know, rich people's clothes are a little bit better preserved than the clothes that poor people actually wore. Gee, it's almost like they were rich or something. Go figure. But this is showing something that's improved about the laundry process. This was a step that was easy to get wrong, so detergents changed in order to make it easier to get it right. So much for the whole we used to do laundry better thing then, huh? Yeah.
It was time-consuming and unwieldy for people to blue their own laundry, so when it was first incorporated into detergents, it was designed to save people a step in something they were doing anyway. Over time, we've shifted focus to having as few steps as possible in the process, and frankly, most of us have no idea about laundry bluing or its origins.
See, most people would hear him talk about this stuff and just hear an innocent transition from one topic into another and more interesting little facts. But remember his thesis from before. We were better at doing laundry before than we are now. This is part of painting that picture. For one, no, it's not really an improvement to do laundry bluing as a separate step, as I highlighted earlier. Some steps in the process of doing laundry were combined together for a good reason. Hell, if you think about it, using boiling water for its stain fighting power was already an example of this in practice. And this would have been a good place to point out how cold water cycles weren't just being done for energy efficiency either. Originally, clothes were being washed on cold cycles to both make clothes last longer and make them wrinkle less before energy consumption was even being considered as part of it. And there's a reason we talk about this here, because it's another example of something that actually helps your case in your overall point that, spoiler alert, you never fucking mention.
So, your laundry is dirty and detergents are tricking your eyes in an attempt to make your clothes look cleaner than they actually are. What can you do? Well, there are a few options here. The first is that you can spend even more money to do the laundry. In 2020, the market for laundry sanitizers, products which, as the name suggests, is added to your normal wash to sanitize it, was estimated at $34.1 million as people rushed out to buy products that would lower their risk of getting COVID. Living in a more virus-conscious society now, the market for these is expected to grow to $44.5 million by 2028. Not bad for a product that's intended to clean your already quote-unquote clean clothes.
There are also ingredients that already have sanitizers, such as Persil, OxyClean, which is basically just formulated peroxide, or, you know, bleach for whites. chemical sanitizers already exist, and a lot of them are typically used instead of regular detergent in specific circumstances. Not all laundry can be used with this stuff though, so it's better to check your labels. Which you say about your next entry, but not this one. Weird.
Another option here is to be a little less eco-friendly on your clothes and wash some things in actual hot water. You won't always have the option to do this with things like delicates or darks, but for your gym socks, you'll know that you're not spreading athlete's foot to your pillowcases.
Funny, your study says something similar, but, well, a little different. To quote the study's introduction, in order to counteract the biofilm buildup, most washing machine producers advise a maintenance wash, a monthly wash at high temperatures, preferably involving a bleaching agent. In other words, the advice given here is to basically run the washer to clean itself. I mean, think about it. It's the same way you clean even something as basic as a sink. You run the water, you use a cleaner, and instead of cleaning things in the sink, you clean the sink itself. It's really not rocket surgery. The frequency is notable though, once a month. In other words, based on your own source, this is not a severe enough issue, according to the washing machine manufacturers, for most people to need to change the way they regularly wash clothes. Just add an empty cycle once every 4 weeks. And it's funny how your study states a recommended solution that you seem to leave out because it contradicts your ability to scaremonger over the severity of the issue, didn't it?
The third option, though, might just be our best. There is a free option here that can make your clothes whiter while also killing bacteria. Sounds good, right? What is this miracle product? Well, get ready for it. It's groundbreaking. It's the sun. That's right. One of the best solutions, if you have it available to you, is to expose your laundry right out of the washing machine to the sun. Well, sure, a lot of us have dryers available. There are two main advantages to exposing your clothes to UV radiation in the form of sunlight.
Okay, you don't know it, but you've already played yourself. Dude, you already advised people to use a UV light that is already used as a disinfectant, but wouldn't tell people to use it as a disinfectant. Come on, my guy. And it's an important thing to note that it makes your clothes look whiter, but no, don't worry. He's gonna wind up shooting himself in the foot with that in just a moment.
First, UV radiation can bleach your fabrics. You know this if you've ever seen curtains or a dark sofa exposed to direct sunlight over a period of time. Totally changes the color. Well, when you put stains or discolored clothing under sunlight, it does the exact same thing. It's gonna actually slightly erode the pigments on the surface of the fabric, including stains and discolored areas.
Right, but it's also gonna erode the areas that aren't discolored. And I notice you use the word bleach here, but no mention using the chemical of the same name for white clothes at all. Also, remember when you said that optical brighteners take yellow light and filter it with blue? So if the sun is brightening your clothes, that's not going to balance out the yellowing that happens to clothes from natural wear and tear. It's going to make them look dingier because light from the sun tends to look yellow. And remember, at no point did you make any claim that detergents or washing machines didn't remove stains from your clothes, or that they even created discoloration themselves, other than by washing them in the first place, full stop. So that's solving an issue that doesn't exist. Notably, there's an article from WebMD that gives advice on how to prevent illness with laundry. Using hot water to wash is on there, and sun drying clothes is there too, but not as an alternative to using the dryer. Instead, it uses it as an alternative to air drying your clothes without the use of sunlight. In addition, ironing your clothes kills germs as well, and this goes back to you not bringing up something that helps your point. Remember when I said that we could use cold water to prevent wrinkles? Well, you get out wrinkles by ironing clothes, so we literally started using cold water for clothes washing to remove a step, and in turn, 2 methods of sanitizing clothes were removed in the process. This would be a case of the way we used to do laundry actually being more sanitary, and the modern way we choose to go about things, being worse from that metric. But you choose not to bring it up. I would say that you did this in order to avoid looking less eco-friendly, but, well, one of your options for how to fix the problem, in the end, was to be less eco-friendly, so I guess there goes that, huh? You know, I'm kind of glad we got to this before Jake could see this video on his own. Somebody who doesn't already know about how to do laundry would get some good information, but there's some pretty bad misinformation that, even if it isn't actively said, certainly feels implied.
Babe, I'm not going to MatPat to know how to do laundry. I'll go to you instead.
Aww. Gay. Get the fuck over it.